Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. I'm coming to you live from the Explorers Club in New York, where it is World Ocean Week. There are a ton of events happening here at the club. And then, of course, we're hosting our Ocean Week events, probably about 16 events by the time the week comes to an end, talking to ocean scientists and explorers, researchers and filmmakers, sharing their stories and what they see when they jump into the big blue waters of our planet. So if you've been tuning in already, you know there's lots of events and there's still lots more to come. So if you visit exploringbytheseat.com/Ocean Week, you can find all the events that are still coming up and register for your classroom, grab some camera spots, or tune in live, whatever works best for you. So continuing with our World Ocean Week action, we're going to spend a little time talking about whales today. We've got Loraine Shuttleworth joining us from South Africa, and she's working to better understand the behavior and biology of South Africa's southern right whales. So she's a zoology researcher. She's completed her master's degree and is currently pursuing her Ph.D. So her research is all about the biology of this population, how they're being impacted by environmental changes. So she gets to do cool things like boat-based research, flying drones along South Africa's coast to collect really important data for their conservation. So let's bring Loraine in live with us right now. Hey, Loraine, how are you doing today?
Hi, thanks for introducing me. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Great. It's great to have you live with us today. We've got great classrooms joining us from across Canada and the US. We're going to have lots of questions when the Q&A time comes. We're going to play some Kahoot. But for now, let's let you take over for a little bit. Take us into your world, Loraine.
Good, thanks so much. Let's see, just sharing my screen. Can we all see it?
All right, looks good. We're ready.
Good. So, like Joe said, hi, I'm Loraine. I'm a PhD candidate with the Mammal Research Institute Whale Unit of the University of Pretoria in South Africa. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it's like to be a southern right whale researcher. So first, a quick background on me and how I actually got into doing this. I went to an all-girls high school, and this is where my love for science really stemmed. And my goal was always to be a marine biologist. But I'll be honest, my teachers were quite skeptical. They weren't sure if it was quite a stable career, if it was a thing to do. So when I went to university, I thought maybe let me go into the human-focused side. So my undergrad was actually in human physiology, genetics, and psychology. But I couldn't stay away from the ocean for too long, definitely not. So for my postgrad, I then joined the zoology department, and that's where I got involved with the whale unit. And honestly, that was the best decision I could have ever made. So this is what I do. My year gets split into about 3 portions. My favorite part is the field work. So that happens between July and September, which is when the southern right whales are on the South African coast. So here we go out on the boat in Walker Bay, which is in Hermanus. It's a small coastal town in South Africa. And we go find some right whales. The rest of the year is split between doing lab work and then also a bit of computer research where I have to do the data analysis and writing up my results. But that's not too bad because I can work wherever there's a Wi-Fi connection. So I'm never stuck in an office for too long, and that's great. So this is really the perfect job for me. And if you take anything from today, I really just want to encourage you all to follow your dreams, no matter what, no matter who doubts you, who doesn't believe in you. You do what you love, because when you do what you love, then I promise you will never work a day in your life. So let's actually get to the southern right whales. These are one of the 3 baleen whale species that you can find on the coast of South Africa. And by baleen whales, I mean the whales that don't have teeth. So instead of teeth, they have these long plates in their mouth that they use to filter feed their food, and that is called baleen. And what makes southern right whales really cool is that they have these markings on their face. So if you see there's little white spots on each of the whale's heads, that is called a callosity pattern. And each of these patterns, first of all, it stays the same throughout the whale's life, and no 2 whales will have the same pattern. So it's unique, and we can use it to identify the whales. So when they come, They migrate from high latitude foraging grounds in the Southern Ocean, so really far south, and then they migrate to the South African coast or to other coasts, depending on the different population. But like Joe said, I'm focused on the South African population. So when they migrate to our coast, we can then use these calosity patterns to identify the individual whales, and we can really get to know their story. So Whale Unit has been doing southern right whale research for a really long time, and we've noticed actually a few worrying things with our population. So as I said, the southern right whales feed really far south in the Southern Ocean, but we've noticed that over the last decade or so, they're moving much more north. So there's been a foraging shift. We've also seen that their body condition is decreasing. So that means that the whales are getting much skinnier. If you compare whales from the 1980s to whales from 2020, we actually see that they're about 25% skinnier than they used to be. And then the last thing that we've noticed is that there's an increase in calving interval. So southern right whales are meant to have a calf about every 3 years, but now we're seeing that they're having calves every 4 years, every 5 years, sometimes even 6 and 7 years. So that's really worrying. And we've linked all of these results to climate change. And climate change is shifting the distribution of their prey. It's also changing the abundance of their prey. So that is causing these whales to be nutritionally stressed, especially the adult whales. So our main focus has been on the adults, but no one has really looked at what this nutritional stress means for their calves. And that's exactly what I'm doing with my PhD. My question is to ask, if the moms are nutritionally stressed, are they able to feed their calves properly? And so will the calves have enough energy to grow and actually enough energy to survive? So to do this, we have to start with some sample collection. Like I said, this is my favorite part. It's where we do the boat-based fieldwork. So we'll go out on our boat whenever the weather is good and the swell is not too big in search of southern right whales. During the start of the season, we'll look at single whales because those could be pregnant females. But mostly we try and focus on mother-calf pairs. So once we've found a mother-calf pair, we'll approach them not too close so that we don't bother them, but we'll get pretty close to them, and then we'll set up our drone. So the drone gets launched, and we fly it over the whales so that we can record some really, really cool overhead footage of the whales, and I'll show you some of that a bit later. But in my opinion, it is the best way to see the whales. You really get to see their whole body, how they move. It's quite amazing. So we'll record them for a while, and once we're happy with the footage that we've collected, we'll get the drone back, and then we go and take a biopsy sample of both the mom and the calf. So the biopsy samples are really quick. They don't hurt the whales at all. You can consider them to be kind of like a mosquito bite. It's a quick little sting, and then we move on. So when we have our drone footage and our biopsy sample of one pair, we'll go on to the next. And so we'll continue our day to get as many samples as we can until just before it gets dark, we will go back home. So once we're back, in our office, we'll take our biopsy samples and then we'll subsample them so that I can use some of the sample for my project, but we also save a lot of the sample so that it can be used for future research. So those biopsy subsamples, they will get sent for lab work. And then we'll also download all the drone footage that we collected for the day so that we can use that for body condition modeling. So when we combine the results of the lab work with the body condition modeling, we're hoping to get an understanding of how the nutritional state of the mom, so whether she's in a good condition or a bad condition, how that affects the way she raises her calf and how that affects calf growth rates. So here is one of the drone videos that we took. So I'll just show you. Okay, so what we're looking for with the drone footage, firstly, we're hoping to get a really clear image of the whale. So that has to do with the visibility of the water. Some days are better than others. So this was a really good visibility day. You can see really nice and clearly. There's also very little swell, so that's great because you're not getting too much splashes over the whale. And then there's also no reflection from the sun. The the wind was also quite calm this day, so you don't see any ripples on the water. So this is all really ideal conditions for the kind of video that we're looking for. And then the other thing that we have to consider is the position of the whale, because that's really important for the modeling part. So we ideally want the whale to be completely straight and also flat on the water. So we don't want its tail to be dropped down or its head to be diving in. We also ideally don't want the calf to be obstructing the mom. But it does happen. So these whales were quite cooperative. She was doing what we wanted her to do, lying flat. But you do get whales that are way more playful, and they'll spin around, they'll go on their backs, they will lobtail, some of them will lunge. So that can be quite a challenge, trying to find the exact right moment. But it's still really nice because I get to spend my day watching whale movies. So that's our drone footage. Right, so that was a lot about my project, but Whale Unit does a lot of southern right whale research, and the great part is that we all collaborate with each other, we all help each other out, so I've been able to work on a lot of other interesting projects as well. The first one I want to talk about is our annual aerial survey. So every year we get in a helicopter and we fly over the entire coast of South Africa, and we count every single southern right whale. So not only do we count them, we also take a photo of them. And the reason why we do that is for our catalog. So like I said, you can use the callosity patterns that you'll see there, they're circled in red. You can use those to identify the whales. And then some individuals will also have a unique marking, like the one on the right there has got a white blaze. So that can further be used to identify the individuals. And we put that all in a catalog. We've been doing it for almost 60 years now. And then we can see basically the life of every individual that we have cataloged. So we can see how frequently each whale comes to the South African coast. We can see how frequently they had a calf, all things like that. It's really interesting, and it's been really helpful for us to understand our population. The next really cool project that we have is our satellite tagging program. So every year around November, we put little tags on the whales that allow us to track their movements throughout the year. So I've included just a photo here of the tracks of some of the whales. But if you'd like, you can go to our website, which I've put at the bottom there, or you can just Google Mammal Research Institute Whale Unit and it should come up. And then you can actually live track the whales. So you can see exactly where they're going or where they are at any given moment in time. And this has been really amazing, because in the past, before we tagged, we could see the whales when they were on the coast, but when they disappear down south towards Antarctica, it's really difficult to keep track of them and to study them. So this has really allowed us to gain a whole new perspective of their movements. And then the last project I want to tell you about is our baleen sampling projects. So baleen, like I said, is part of the filter feeding mechanisms of baleen whales. And the museums there's a lot of museums that collect baleen from animals that have stranded. So what's really cool about baleen is that it holds all of the information for like 2 to 3 decades of the whale's life. So what we do is we sample at consecutive intervals. So for a southern right whale, we sample at 2 centimeter intervals, and that will represent about 1 month of the whale's life. So we can tell what was happening every single month of this whale's life for up to like 30 years. If you look here on the right, you can see baleen is really long. It's much taller than what I am. So if you think how many 2 centimeter intervals we can get on such a long baleen, you can really see just how much information is captured in there. With the baleen, we do a lot of hormone work, so we can see retrospectively, like things like how often a female got pregnant. We can see if her pregnancy was successful or if it failed, maybe where during the cycle it failed. So yeah, really, really informative for retrospective information. Yeah, so then we'll just talk about why is this so significant. Southern right whales are really important to balance ocean ecosystems. They are often called ecosystem engineers. Basically, they shape how the ecosystem looks. And they're also considered a sentinel species, which means that if we look at them, we can get a really broad understanding of what is happening in the Southern Ocean as a whole. And because they are easier to study than going to the Southern Ocean, that's really, really helpful for us. So each research project that we are doing at Whale Unit is kind of like a puzzle piece. And we put all of those puzzle pieces together, and they give us a big picture into the South African context, the South African population of southern right whales, and we can understand what's happening there. But we can also use this information and apply it globally, and see how it compares to the other southern right whale populations. So we have populations in Australia, New Zealand, South America around Argentina and Brazil. So all of those populations are undergoing different stresses, and it's really important for us to see how the different populations compare to one another. So there's lots of research groups around the world that are doing very similar research that Whale Unit is doing, so that we all have comparable results. And then we can really get a really nice global picture and global understanding, so that we can have global conservation and management strategies. Right, and that's the end of my presentation. So I'd like to say thank you to everyone who came, also to my research group and the Explorers Club for really making this possible. Thanks so much. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
I think we'll definitely have some questions, Loraine. Thank you for that great presentation. It was really neat to see the drone footage of the mother with the calf, and really cool to see how much information you can collect in different ways, especially the baleen. I had no idea that we could tell so much about them from collecting the baleen.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Okay. Well, we're going to play a little Kahoot together. So if you're joining us, well, two things. If you're joining us via YouTube, send in your questions via the live chat, and we will get those ready. I'm also going to share my screen, and we're going to play a little Kahoot together. So here we go. You need to visit kahoot.it, and then it's going to ask you for a PIN number, and you want to put in 6790040 today. So when it asks you for a PIN number, you want to put in 6790040. If you have a device at your seat, you could use that. Otherwise, your teacher could pop it up at the front of the classroom, and you could shout out your answers to him or her. If you can't join with technology, that's fine too. You can still join in with us and play the Kahoot. You don't have to put the answers in. You can see how you do. In the end, I think I put 5 questions today, some true and false, some multiple choice. If you were paying attention, you are ready to go. And then remember, the faster you get the right answer in, the more points you're going to get in our Kahoot. So we're going to get started shortly. I'll give it another couple seconds, see if another 1 or 2 more groups join us. Oh, there we go. And then we'll take things live. So Loraine, just before we do go live, I'll get a quick question in here. How long have you been studying right whales for?
This is about 5 years now.
Okay,
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And can you recognize them by sight now? Are there some you see them and you know exactly who it is?
There are a few. So last year we saw one of my favorite whales. Her name is Myra. She has beautiful white spots on her back. So it was really exciting to see her, and she had a calf last year. So probably won't see her again this year, but I'm hoping for next year.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get some Kahoot going. I think we are ready to play. There's still a couple groups trickling in, but I think we're ready to get started. So here we go. It is going to count us in. We'll have a 3-second count in, and then we are going. All right. First question coming your way. It is a multiple choice. Where is Loraine joining us from today? So your options are Canada, South Africa, Australia, or England. So where do you think, or do you remember Loraine is joining us from today? I think this will be a nice, easy one to get us warmed up and ready to go. We got a few more seconds there on the clock. 5 more seconds. All right. It is absolutely South Africa. Let's take a look at our leaderboard and see how we're looking. The inspired goat is holding down that top spot. Let's go to our next question, some true and false action. Southern right whales are toothed whales. Is that true? Or is that false? Southern right whales are toothed whales. True or false? I can hear the answers clicking in. All right. They are definitely not toothed whales. They are baleen whales. So that is false. That puts the genius kitten in first place. Let's go to our next question. Another true and false coming your way. No two whales have the same pattern of callosities, so those white marks that they have on their bodies. Is that true? Or is that false, that no two whales have that same pattern? A few more seconds to get an answer in. All right. That is true. Let's go to our board. The genius kitten holds on. We've got another quiz question coming your way. Which change in right whales did Loraine not see? Was it moving further north, diving deeper than usual, having less calves, or getting skinnier? So 3 are correct. 1, Loraine did not talk about today. So which do you think it was? A few more seconds on the clock. All right, good job, crew. Diving deeper than usual. So Loraine saw them moving further north, having less calves, and that the mothers were getting skinnier. All right, one more question. One more true and false coming your way. Baleen holds info about whales for up to 30 years. Is that true? Or was that false? Baleen holds info for up to 30 years of the whale's life. All right, good job, crew. That is true. Let's take a look at our podium. In third place, we've got the fuzzy wolf. In second place, the elated ibex. And holding down that top spot, the genius kitten was able to hold on for those last few questions. All right, I am going to turn off my screen share. I'm going to turn off that Kahoot music because we are ready for a little Q&A action. Okay, Loraine, let's do it. I've got a few questions coming in via the chat here already, so let's get started. Actually, I'll say hi to a few classrooms. We've got Dalewood School in Hamilton, Ontario saying hi. We've got another classroom, grade 4s in Toronto saying hi. Looks like we've got a virtual crew, some grade 8s joining us as well. So let's go with the first question. How many whales are you tracking right now?
Okay, so we tag about 10 whales a year, and the tags will transmit mostly for a year, sometimes a little bit over, but then they do lose transmission sometimes a little bit earlier than a year. So I would say 10 to 15 at a time have live tracks, but we've gone through, I think it's 3 seasons of satellite tagging, so we've tagged 30 so far. Okay. And then we'll tag more this year. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, that brings us to another question here about the satellite tags. What happens to the satellite tags over time?
They just fall out. They fall off. Yeah. So they fall off and then they stop transmitting.
Okay. So you don't try to retrieve them? I know they're expensive.
No, they are quite expensive. So we don't, unfortunately, we can't retrieve them, especially if they're not transmitting anymore. To find them would be pretty much impossible. But yeah, they just fall off.
All right. Let's grab a question here for some third graders. Do you remember the first time you saw a right whale?
I do. It was incredible. I think I always knew whales were big. Obviously, everyone knows a whale is big. But until you see them, because our boat is quite small, a baby is bigger than our boat. So when you see this absolutely massive creature, it's like 16 tons, it's wild and you'll never forget it.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. All right. This is a question, must be from someone with experience, wondering, have you ever lost a drone to the ocean?
Very close. We've had some close calls, but the guy that drives our boat, he's amazing. So he's had to catch the drone with the boat. So a lot of fun and games. And I think if the drone goes into the water, I'm going in the water after it because it is a very expensive piece of equipment. But no, luckily not. Our drone pilot he's really good at what he does. So not yet. And fingers crossed, not ever.
Excellent. Well, we're working with an expedition called Darwin 200, and they're sailing a tall ship around the world for 2 years. In fact, we'll reach South Africa in April 2025, I think. So you'll have to come down and see the boat.
Definitely.
And so we're flying drones all the time in some pretty challenging conditions. So we've lost a couple. Luckily, I think they're probably the smaller, maybe not as expensive as the one that you're using, but it still hurts when one of those.
It hurts, definitely. So our drone, we have a rangefinder fitted to it and things like that. So it's very set up for our work, and to replace all of that will be quite a challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a question for you while I wait for a couple more questions to come into the chat. So don't be shy, classrooms. Put a few more questions in the chat for us about right whales. But we've hosted, so I'm here, I live in Canada, and we have our northern right whale population, which is really small, probably between 300 to 400 individuals and falling. And a lot of that has to do with, shipping. So a lot of shipping, a lot of noise pollution and things like that. Do you have similar issues affecting the southern population? So things like, shipping lanes and things like that.
So the southern right whales are definitely in a better environment than the northern rights. They don't have ship strikes sometimes is a problem, but definitely not as frequently as with the North Atlantics. And the North Atlantics also, I know the entanglement is a massive issue for them that the southern right whales don't face. So southern right whales' biggest challenge at the moment is the shift in their prey availability with climate change. They don't face that many anthropogenic problems. So that's really unfortunate because the North Atlantic population is so small, and they're really struggling to recover. Their calving interval averages 7 years, 8 years. So not great. And we're hoping to prevent that with the southern right whale. So that's why the conservation is so important now, while we're seeing these early warning signs. We really don't want to get that population into the position that the North Atlantics are in.
Absolutely. All right. We've got another question here about predators. Do they have any predators?
Not really. Sometimes with the calves, the killer whales will sometimes predate on the calves, but it's not a big threat for them, no.
All right. So we had a scientist join us, it's been a while now, and she was in Australia. Yeah. And they fly the drones through the whale blow, and they can collect information from that. Is that something anyone on your team is looking at?
We are looking to do that. It's called a snotbot. It's very interesting. We are hoping to do it, but our biggest problem is the battery life of the drones at the moment, the drone that we have. So as soon as you add extra things to it, you'll have to add a petri dish to collect the blow. So when you're adding this extra weight to the drone, your battery life decreases immensely. So we're looking into solutions with that so that we can actually have enough time to get out. I think South Africa's weather is also a bit more intense than Australia. The wind also much more wind than in Australia. So your battery life again goes down so quickly.
Yeah.
We're looking into the logistics, but it's definitely an option for whale units in future.
Okay. I have another question here. How come we saw one of those tracks go so far away than all the other ones?
That is such a good question. So that was wild. We always thought we always thought that the whales migrate kind of directly vertically. So from where they visit on the coast, so South Africa, directly just down south Antarctica side. And that was the only way we could assume based on whaling records and things like that, because we can't really go that far south for research. It's not common. So when we tagged that whale and we saw her go all the way to Argentina, it was absolutely mind-blowing completely new, changed what we thought we knew about southern right whales so much. And that really shows, it has so many implications, things like population connectivity. It could indicate that actually our populations are not separate populations and that they're actually one large global population. So that'll have major implications. And that's why it's so important that we continue our tagging work so that we can see if that was a rare case or if they actually do travel such far distances more often than what we think.
Yeah, and so we couldn't see time from that, but how much time passed during that track?
I think that track was about 6 months. I'm speaking under correction, but yeah, about 6 months. And what was also really interesting is that that animal was with a calf. So it's a really, really far distance for a little calf to swim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just what came to my mind was, did you see the calf again? So the calf made that journey?
It did.
Yeah, wow.
Again, the most incredible luck. One of our colleagues, our international colleagues, was out doing fieldwork that side, and she saw a tagged whale. So if you ever see a tagged whale, you definitely want to get drone footage, just to get that double confirmation. And she saw the tag, so she did the drone footage, and she checked their catalogs, because it's a South American catalog, and she saw that it's not in the catalog, which is quite a surprise, because if it's tagged, it should definitely be in the catalog.
Yeah.
And so she sent out an email to all her other international colleagues, and turns out it's one of ours. So that was really amazing.
Very, very cool. Well, it sounds like we need to, well, I'm sure they're doing in Argentina. Have they noticed any whales coming your way with their data?
No, not as far as I know.
Yeah.
No.
All right. So we've got a couple questions here about the callosities. Do they change over the whale's life?
No, they don't. That's what's great. So you can see the callosity from when they're a calf. So not immediately when they're newborn, but within a few months that pattern develops, and then it stays like that for its entire life. So that's why we can know for sure that when we're matching the callosity patterns, we know it's the same whale forever.
Okay. Another question about what they're eating. So what are they eating, and is their food disappearing?
Yes. So their main source of food is krill. So it's kind of like little shrimpies, and then also some copepods. And the krill specifically is the big problem. So krill is very dependent on sea ice, and with climate change, the sea ice is disappearing. So that's having a big impact on the availability of krill for them. And also the krill fisheries are having quite a big impact as well. So definitely, yes, the krill is disappearing. It's also changing location where there are more dense prey patches. So it seems that they are shifting to eating less krill and now more copepods.
Okay. A question here from some grade 8s wondering, if the whale loses its mom, can the whale find its baby again?
So we don't often see, they have very high maternal care. So we really don't often see that the mom will be lost. I think there's 1 or 2 records of orphaned calves. Not quite sure what the outcome was there. But mostly they stick to their moms, and they choose their calving grounds to be quite safe. So the coastal areas are really safe. There's very little orca predation. You don't really have the shipping lanes. You don't have entanglement risk really. So during that really critical time, the chances of losing their mom is quite slim. And then they should be weaned by the time really any big implication could happen if the mom were to get lost, yes.
Okay. And a follow-up here, would you ever intervene in a situation, maybe an entanglement or?
Yes.
Yeah,
so that's actually one of my dream volunteer jobs, is to volunteer with the entanglement network. So they do, when an entangled whale is reported, they do go out and they try and dislodge the whale from that entanglement, yes. And I'd love to be part of that.
All right. And so something we're always curious about here, Loraine, is, there's lots of things to study in the ocean, lots of things we need to know, and lots of species to choose from. So what drew you in the direction of whales?
I think, if I must be honest, if you're a whale person, it's in you from when you were a kid. They are so majestic. I guess it was also the opportunity, the fact that my local university had a whale unit, that definitely helped. But I think I always just knew, and they're such a useful species to study. Like I said, they're a sentinel species or an umbrella species. So when you study them, then you can see what is happening with everything underneath them.
Oops, I missed my mute there for a second. Okay, so I think we're at the point where we're pretty close to saying goodbye for today, but what's next for you, Loraine? What's the next few months look like? When are you getting back in the field? What's coming up?
So I'm getting very excited to go one more month, and then I'll be in the field again. I really can't wait. I'm so excited to see maybe a few familiar faces return this year to the coast. So this will be my last fieldwork season for my PhD. And then next year I'll be finishing that up so that I can finally be Dr. Shuttleworth. And yeah, then I'd like to see if I can go overseas, collaborate with some other research groups. If I can, I'd love to stay with the whales, maybe a different species. I've always wanted to see the blue whales. So we'll see where the opportunities are.
All right. It's fun to have lots of opportunities. And I really liked what you said at the beginning, that if you're doing what you love, if you're doing what you're passionate about, you don't work a day in your life, which is pretty darn
It's so
cool.
true. Yeah. So definitely follow your dreams.
Definitely. So classrooms, thank you so much for tuning in today. Thanks for playing Kahoot with us and sending in those great questions. Loraine, it was a pleasure to get to know you a little bit and share some of your work. And yeah, have fun in the field, and hopefully we'll catch up with you, maybe an event after your field work or something.
Definitely. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, Loraine.
Hi, everyone.
We're going to sign off for today. Don't forget to head over to the website and register tomorrow. I think we have live events from like 9 till 4:30 Eastern tomorrow. So it's going to be pretty darn busy. So we hope to see your classrooms joining us.